everyone, and welcome to a very special episode of this podcast. I have actually not really decided on a name yet. I change it every single time, but currently it says this is the All About Growth podcast. My name is Annette, and today I am taking you behind the scenes of my writing process of my third book, which is called How Important Am I Actually? I've written a little bit of a script because normally I just talk and talk when I'm recording a podcast all by myself, but I have a very special guest today, and I want to make this very professional and great. I'm just going to stick with my script for a little while. It's funny how things have come full circle. So when I started writing my first book, Let's Grow, Raising Children with a Growth Mindset, back in January 2022, I also recorded podcast episodes, but it was just me talking and thinking along the way. And those brainstorm sessions, just me talking things through, ended up shaping so much of the book in ways I never expected. And now, as I'm writing my third book, this new book, I find myself drawn to the same process, thinking out loud, exploring ideas, and reflecting deeply on those big questions. And I love bringing you, my future readers, along for the ride. And this time I'm taking an exciting new approach to research while writing the book. So I'm asking 10 key questions about the topic, How Important Am I Actually? Which is also the title of the book, to a variety of people gathering different perspectives along the way. And today I get to ask these questions to someone whose answers I'm incredibly curious about, the most important person in my life, my love, my husband. And a little fun fact, I'm writing this book simultaneously in 3 languages, in English, Norwegian, and Dutch. And today's episode will be in English, so our friends from all around the world can tune in and be part of this journey. Thaddeus, welcome.
Oh.
I can't wait to hear your thoughts, so let's dive in. The first question is, what are your first thoughts that come to mind when you hear the question, how important am I actually?
My first thoughts are, it depends. And it depends heavily on how important I think I am on the context or the situation. Am I just with you? Am I with the kids? Am I at work? Am I among friends? It usually depends, and I think it's important to create a bit of context for a discussion, know the framework we're in, so that we can try to understand each other to the best of our abilities.
Okay. And when you think about you, like, how important am I actually when it comes to like situation? So you're a dad, you're a partner. When you look through that lens,
we have 3 kids, right? They're growing up. The youngest is 5, the oldest is 11. So there's a different level of how independent they are and how I think I can be supportive to them, how I can challenge them to grow, or how I can be supportive to do what they like to do in life, what they need to do in life. In that sense, I'm taking a backseat. If I truly want to be the best support I can be, I have to adapt myself, my knowledge, my skills, my preferences, my desires to them. Most of the time, there's to give a very simple example, there's a time when it's just bedtime. I'm not going to adjust my idea of bedtime to when they want to go to bed if they have to go to school tomorrow. It's a very normal day. If it's the middle of a summer holiday and the sun's up until 10:30 or 11, I might be a little more subtle there. But usually I try to explain to them why I think it's important to get enough sleep and to get high quality sleep and what we do to get there. And one of the things is having a bit of a routine and going to bed around the same time most of the days of the year. So how important am I when raising kids or supporting kids? Well, I'm taking a back seat, even though there are some, I wouldn't say non-negotiables, but hard to negotiate on things. It depends.
Okay. And when it comes to work?
Once again, it depends, right? In my line of work, I've worked as a physiotherapist for 15 years, where there's a similarity to the situation I am describing now. If I am helping somebody that comes to me because they have a knee injury, if that would be a very clear, medically diagnosed, maybe even orthopedic knee injury, I would treat mostly the knee, make the knee move in the way that I think is important, and then see if I can take the person who that knee belongs to along for the ride. So then that knee is important, and my knowledge or my skills to work with that knee are important. And that person takes the back seat, the second seat. If it's the same person coming in with a different knee injury where there's not a clear medical explanation or not an orthopedic surgery or medication or injection, whatever it is, to heal the knee, then that person becomes most important and their knee or their knee problem takes the backseat along with me. So that means I would have to get to know that person and their preferences and their desires and when the knee is bothering them. I have to put that first and adapt myself to it in order to help them in the best possible way. So there's a dynamic based on what exactly is going on that determines how important that person is or how important that person's body part is, and then my role to it as well. To give you an example, if you would have a problem with your knee and you would need a knee replacement, the surgeon's work is to work with that knee, get the old knee out, put the new knee in. The person who gets that knee is not that important for the surgeon, right? The nurses who see you before surgery and after surgery, they talk to the person a lot more. How are you feeling? Are you in pain? What do you want to eat? Have you slept enough? Blah, blah, that kind of stuff. But to the surgeon, it's just a knee. If I would see that person, let's say 2 or 3 weeks after surgery, I am, yes, concerned about the knee. Is it not inflamed? Is it moving the way we should? Are you progressing along the pattern that we see for other people who get a surgery like this? I'm first concerned about the knee, but once that is quite okay, all my attention moves to that person. And I am no longer important. That person and what they like to do and how they like to do it and how often they like to do it becomes really important.
Is it like a volume button maybe, or like which you can like put on louder or less loud?
In the sense that you can dose how important I am based on the context? Absolutely, yes.
Yeah. That's a fun way to look at it.
Yeah, and I think the volume is never turned down to 0. So I'm never not important at all, because my interaction with that client who had knee surgery is never a one-time interaction. This one interaction always has implications or maybe complications make things harder the next time I see them. Even if that's not in a business relationship, patient and therapist, but maybe just running into them in the supermarket afterwards.
Yeah. Okay, different lens as a dad, as a physiotherapist or a coach. Now as a partner, as my partner.
It's similar but not the same, right?
Yeah.
We've been together for a little over 13 years now.
This is how many years?
No, that's not the point. The point is our relationship has developed over that time. It was the two of us. It was the two of us living together. It was the two of us living abroad. It was the 3 of us, 4 of us, 5 of us. It changes a lot. So I've seen the questions you want to ask. I kind of know where we're going, right? One example is that we've had times in our relationship where there was a big spotlight on me, my career development, and the choices I made had a big impact on when we saw each other, how much we saw each other, how much energy was available for me, right? Was I completely drained from weeks of working hard and just wanted to sleep? Or had I just finished a day of work but full of energy and ready to listen to you, spend a lot of time with you, and be a bit more supportive to you? That has changed. One example is when we moved to Norway, right? We moved to Norway in this part of Norway because you got a job right here. And I happily adapted from what I did before to, all right, this is the main thing now. Let's see how I can be supportive of this. What freedom do I have? How much time do I have available? How much financial pressure is on me to deliver? And how much is on you? And that balance has moved up and down. So yes, that's the same volume button where I'm never turned down to 0. I could do that maybe for a very short period of time, but it's going to catch up to me. If I fully put myself in the back seat and put other people in front of myself, if I'm never filling up my own cup, then my cup is going to run on empty and I can't pour from an empty cup. I can't take care of people if I really feel miserable. So it's never 0. I'm never 0, but I'm also hardly any point of time 100% of the volume. Most of the time we're moving up and down.
And on a daily base, like just a normal, regular day in our relationship, can you describe how the volume like switch works for you there?
My running joke to you is always, we always share everything, right? And I especially make that joke when you still have dessert and mine is already finished. So I truly believe, and that partly comes to the way I've been brought up by my parents, that we share things. That doesn't mean it's always an even 50 split. But I would love for the balance to be close to 50. There's time for you, there's time for me. There's attention for you, there's attention for me. We're doing things that you think are really fun and I might not enjoy that much, but we're also doing things that I think are really fun and you might not enjoy to the same degree. I'd love for it to be 50-50. But the reality is that it's more often a 60-40 or a 70-30 or maybe even an 80-20 for a period of time, and then we move back and might go into the other direction. It's a dance, and we both have to move to the right when we're going to the right, or we both have to move to the left if we're going to the left. If we don't, we're going to lose each other, and that happens every now and then. We drift apart a little bit, but we manage to get back together and make it work, which is part of having a healthy relationship, I think, between two grown-ups. With the kids, I wouldn't allow that much separation. I would be alarmed by it quicker and try to make amends. So here's a pitfall. When I need to fill my own cup, I tend to need peace and quiet and be by myself. When you need to fill your cup, one of the ways you organize your mind is by getting any thoughts or feelings you have inside of you out into words, either in a conversation or write them down on paper. I'm an introvert a bit more than you are. I start to think and ponder and wonder about these thoughts. And then by the time I've given words to them, I'll tell somebody, well, I've been thinking about this and that's what I'm going to do because of it. You, on the other hand, have a conversation with a friend or with me or a neighbor. And in the conversation, you're giving words to what you're thinking and then it comes out. It's a different way of handling it. So my pitfall is when I need to fill my own cup, I might go on solo adventures a bit too much. I just want to be left alone and figure it out. Your pitfall is you're always looking for something or somebody. So if we're both at the same time need to fill up our own cup, I'm going to try to walk away from you and create some peace and quiet, and you're going to try to come to me and talk to me. I'm not open for it at the moment, right?
Yeah.
Before I realize that, we're clashing and drifting further apart. As soon as I realize it, I'm going to say, all right, I'm going to press pause on what I need right now and just help you. Or you're going to press pause and just let me be and then come back and we figure it out later.
Yeah. And now you can think and talk about it because like now we're not in the heat of the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah. But this is an interesting lesson. And this is like something that when you are in the heat of the moment and you can grab that tool that we're just discussing right now, that would be so powerful.
Yeah. So I'm trying to teach my kids not my manual or your manual, how to handle you.
Yeah.
I'm trying to help my kids figure out their own manual. And an idea about the manual doesn't have to be a very exact idea of how they interact with the people that are close to them. Yeah. Either us in the house or their classmates or their friends.
And I think that's really, really important here, that we're not putting our own ways on them, but we're supporting them to figure out and to learn what their own manual is, right?
Yeah.
I think that's really powerful. And so when you're thinking about like how important am I actually, like it comes in so many different chapters, in so many different like moments, situations. When you try to look at that volume, like, okay, now I'm like 100% on, this is really important, or 98, or like you're finding that switch. And when it comes to our children, I asked Saul this question, how important are you actually? Or, and he's like, super important. And he's just like, in his mind, he's always important. And it's just so interesting how like young children would answer that question. And when they get a little bit older, how that might change. Or still, they think they're so important and everything they want is the most important thing in the world. And when they get a little bit older, like Jules, who's 11 and a half now, and Pippa is almost 10, having a conversation about like sometimes to put that volume a little bit more to like 40 or 30 or 20. Like sometimes your voice is actually not that important, or sometimes your ideas when you're having a conversation with somebody else. Or for example, when your friend is telling you something that happened, and how to be a good listener and put your own importance a little bit like on hold or park it for now. How do you see that?
There's a very short story by Seth Godin, a big American marketeer, who wrote a story about the difference between urgent matters and important matters. You just said Saul thinks he is always important. And I think he's not wrong. He is always in, but he's not fully right. Seth Godin says, all right, when something is on fire, it's urgent to put the fire out, to prevent it from spreading and burning down your home. But it's more important to, when there is nothing on fire, get a fire extinguisher in the house, so that if a fire breaks out, you have a great way to put it out. Soul is important all of the time. And when he's throwing a toddler tantrum, it's very urgent to handle it in that moment. But it's more important to help him develop. And he's not going to magically see this when he gets older. He needs an example. He needs a conversation at the level where he's at and a challenge that's within grasp for him to develop this emotional stability or this volume button of I'm always very important to I see somebody is sad, I'm going to help my friend now. And they do this. Toddlers do this in a brilliant way, but it's just not a fully conscious way, right? If there's 3 kids playing on the playground and one falls down and starts crying, they change the way they play in the moment to take care of that urgent matter. One of my friends is crying, and I don't want to see them crying. I want to see them happy because I can play with them. They do this, but at a completely different way than adults do. So by speaking about examples like this, he'll start to get an understanding of his own volume button. And he's right in saying, yes, I'm always important. Great. He's not always the most urgent one.
I want this and I want it now.
Great.
Yeah, that's right here. It's so big in his head and he doesn't listen to anything else. The alarm is fully on. I want this and I want it now. And whatever you say, so that volume button is so loud, it's on 100% on what I want and what I think I need at this point.
Yes, and it's at 100% or it's close to 100%. Whenever he's tired, whenever he's upset, whenever he's overstimulated from a lot of new stuff.
Yeah.
But it's also turned down, right? Not as close to 100, but closer to 50 or in the direction of 0 when he's at ease, when he has to postpone stuff. Let's wait to start dinner until everybody's at the table. Or when he has to be a little patient to get something. Or when he has to understand that we have to do this one thing first before we do the next thing. I need you to get dressed and have breakfast first before we can take you to kindergarten and play with your friends.
I'm thinking about the volume button now, like the volume switch. If it's fully on 100, there's no space and no space to listen to somebody else. I think when you find that control of the switch, when you are able to, okay, I need to tone it down a little bit. It needs to be less loud. Then you have more availability or accessibility to somebody else's thoughts. And in order to grab that understanding, you need to feel calm or you need to feel calm, cool, and collected.
Enough.
Yeah, enough to make that growth mindset choice in order to listen to somebody else's ideas. And in order to okay, I'm a little less important right now. I'm just going to listen to you. Yeah. It's not about me right now. I'm going to be a good friend. I'm going to be a good partner. And how I feel about this situation is actually totally not important right now. I think we all recognize those situations when you share something that happened to you. Like, oh my goodness, we were in a horrible accident. And the first thing somebody says, like, oh yeah, my neighbor had an accident too. And it was just, and you're like, I didn't say this because I want to hear about your neighbor's accident. Yeah. I just want you to listen to me. And somebody who would say, like, oh my goodness, do you want to tell me more about it? Maybe also had these thoughts about actions with things that happened, but that's just not for now. I'm not important at this point. I am important as a listener, not as a speaker.
This is the volume button is just a mental model, a mental image. It's too simple to fully reflect what goes on in reality. So we're missing some parts, because even our 5-year-old can turn his own button to 100 and say, I want this right now. But the example of his friend crying would probably drag him out of that, turn his own button down, and then take care of his friend. It can be very urgent to get his dinner now. But if something else strikes him, if there's an emotion from his friend, or he sees our neighboring kids playing outside on the trampoline, he really wants to join them because it's fun, he's going to forget about his food and go there. So he's able to switch in an instant. And this is what I do in my coaching a lot. A lot of people think that their knowledge or their skills or how high their volume button is something they do not have control over. You do have control over it. It's a choice, but oftentimes you're able to make that choice if you do stuff in advance. If you fill your own cup, if you take care of yourself beforehand, with stupid basic stuff, right? Getting enough and high quality sleep, getting enough and high quality food in you, getting enough and high quality social relationships with a loving partner or just friends and family and neighbors around you and colleagues maybe even. If that's all under threat, if I'm in a socially isolated environment, if I'm not sleeping, if I'm starving myself or just feeding myself junk food, do you think you'll be able to switch that volume button all the way up to 100 and all the way down to 0? Or is that bandwidth going to be a little smaller? Right. So this is, are you able to use that growth mindset for big parts of the day or different situations if you do not take care of yourself? So this is where I would say, yes, you are very important. Our 5-year-old is absolutely right in saying, no, I'm always important in this context.
Yeah. So when we're talking about this and thinking about this, it feels about you can't control your own importance, or you can put it louder or less loud, and like in different situations. And I think it's so interesting to think about it, what the effect is on somebody else.
Yeah.
So can you come up with an example where you felt like it was so powerful to turn off your own volume of your own importance in order to make somebody else's importance shine, or to make somebody else feel so seen and heard and important because you switched off your volume?
Do you want
An example? Do you have an example?
private or business?
Both?
Both.
Yeah.
Let's start with a business example.
Okay.
If I'm coaching somebody and they're driven to do something, right? Run their first marathon. It's not up to me to say, well, are you sure you want to do that? It might be really hard. It's not up to me to put out that sparkle they have to do it, their motivation. But it is up to me, if I want to be the best helper I can be, to be realistic with them and say, well, if that's what you want to do, if that's the finish line, right? Literally the finish line of the marathon, where are we now? What's in the way between where you are now and if you cross that finish line? Because if I don't help them organize their mind, they might under or overestimate what it takes to get there. I'm doing them a disservice by not confronting them with it. So I'm not important. I need to get their thoughts out. We need to agree on we're now here and that's the finish line of a marathon, or we are now here and that's the finish line of a marathon. Because what we're going to do to get from point A to point B is different than what we do to get from point X. It has consequences for the near future, how I interact with them, what they are going to do or what they are going to do. Stop doing.
Okay.
Right? So that's a business example.
But also in business, when was a moment when your client, or like a person you were coaching, I don't know how you would call a person, was really, you were listening without judgment. You were just fully there for that person. Can you describe what happens to a client when you use that tool, or when you use that, how would you call it? When you do that, that approach.
Well, first of all, if I'm working with somebody I'm coaching, I usually just call them by their name. I don't like to give them a label of you're a patient.
No, that's why I don't like the word clients. Yeah.
Call them by their name.
Yeah.
Because I'm trying to show up as a human being with flaws and things I might be good at, or that I might be experienced in, or that I might even have some expertise in. I'm trying to show up as a human being to the other human being. Part of coaching is that there's a human relationship, which is never perfect, and we need to dance, right? Both go in the same direction. As opposed to showing up as some know-it-all or guru who says, just follow my lead. I know what's best for you, even though I have no clue who you are and what you like to do and what the rest of your life is like.
Yeah.
I don't believe that works. So can I give an example of how I did that? This has become second nature to me, right? So let's think of 2 examples. We have somebody who had knee surgery and wants to run a marathon. 2 examples. In one example, I take the approach of being a guru. Let's say I'm an expert marathon coach, which I'm not. I'm an expert marathon coach. I might then put my own beliefs, my own approach, my own expertise, and say, this is the way to do it. Because I've done it 1,000 times with 1,000 different people.
Me, so it can work for you.
No, and it has worked for all of those 1,000.
Oh, yeah.
Just follow my lead. What I'm actually saying without saying is, you are not that important. I have already figured it out. Or I could take the approach, same thing, had a knee surgery, really wants to run a marathon. I might have some experience, but I would say, all right, how would you like to approach it? What have you tried in the past? What results has that given to you? What results have you not gotten yet? Do you have a clue why you didn't get those results? How are we going to get from where we are now to that finish line that you determined? What help do you need from me? What things can you do yourself? So I spoke about this with somebody yesterday. I said, hey, there's a point in time where it doesn't matter if I make the world's best program or if I make just a mediocre program. And it doesn't matter if it's the world's best or just mediocre if you're not gonna do the program. I need to get to know you, and I need to be able to trust you that you're actually going to do something. Because if that's not there, that's a prerequisite, then my program really doesn't matter. I need to get to know you, and I need to test you a little bit. can you show up and do something, the full program or part of the program if you're stressed for time or resources, when things are well or when things are not so well, when you're really busy or when life is hectic or when I need to get to know you, otherwise I can't help you. And that's usually a question or an insight that people then get where they're like, yeah, I think of myself of a person who can do this. I said, great, prove it to me in the next few weeks. Let's go and do it. I might struggle with that because I have to travel and be away, or my finances are tight, or there's a lot going on in the home. So, all right, let's try to do the best you can.
Yeah.
Let's meet you where you are at and take the next step, because that's what eventually the next step, and then the next step there, and the next step there, that's what eventually gets you closer to the finish.
And if you would have
Let's
put
not
like,
just
set,
think,
like program on that person,
yes,
it would have not felt like that person felt seen or heard or important.
Seen or heard. And we're also discrediting then that if I take 1, 2, 3, 4 steps, I'm in a new environment. I see new things. I have new experience.
Yeah.
I don't know what that's going to be yet. I can't predict the future.
No.
The horizon is changing as we move closer to the horizon.
Yeah, and I think both of us see that. We see that every single individual you meet in the world, in your life, in your, like, during the day, needs a different volume approach, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We see that. It's a great thing that we are convinced that we see it.
Well, we think.
But it's also a model, right? It's
Yeah.
too simple to explain the whole reality.
Yeah.
So we are not aware of when we are missing signals like that.
And I would love to know.
We could terribly suck.
Yeah.
And because we're together living under the same roof, we wouldn't even be aware of it.
No.
So you do need some feedback from people on this.
Yes. Yes.
And that feedback could be, whenever I talk to you, I always feel like that's the only thing in the world. You have people saying that to you.
Yeah.
I have people saying that to me. I try my best to do it.
But maybe we only get
Might
the
be really bad, and I just don't
Yeah.
know. Right, it could be in my own little echo chamber, in my own time.
And maybe we only get the positive feedback.
Yeah, because it's hard to give somebody negative feedback. But if I flip this around and I'm trying to help somebody, not giving them that hard feedback or that negative feedback is also taking away their opportunity to grow from it. So the way I then bring that feedback, that's part of my skill.
Yeah. That would be,
I have to be good at that.
That would be a complete different podcast.
I can't shy away from it, but I also can't just blurt out everything I think, because I'm not helping them in the best possible way. It's not about what I say or how I say it or when I say it. It's about how they hear it,
of course,
what they do from it. And that's the beauty of being a therapist compared to a surgeon. I'm going to see the people I work with a lot more times than the surgeon sees you. Yeah. That's the beauty of being a coach compared to somebody who's on stage giving an inspirational talk. That's a one-time talk. I'm coaching them maybe for an hour at a time, maybe twice a week for the next 3 months. I have the privilege of spending a lot of time with them in a session and on the calendar. So if I give them some feedback, I have the opportunity to see what they do with it.
It's an interaction.
Long dance.
Yeah. It's a dance. Yeah. We're so good at dancing.
No, not at all. But I try to do my best to make myself more or less important, to help people in the best way I can.
Yeah. This is just such an interesting topic. And it's like nobody answers this question in the same way. And we all have our own like history. We all have our own stories. We all have our own assumptions. We have our own like wires, like everything that we have, our patterns that we can break, that we can create new patterns. And I like this new pattern that I would like to create of this volume, what do you call it, like for a DJ? What is
a
that?
Dial? Dial it up, dial it down?
Yeah, like that. What is that called? Like when you have a DJ, you have like, when you are a DJ, you have this, what is that called? I don't know what it's called.
This is what DJs do.
I know, but like the switch, like the switchboard. So I would like to see it as a switchboard. I think that's also in the movie, right? In the Inside Out, there's also this switchboard. And I'm going to think about that from now on. Like this switchboard, like I'm not important at the moment at all, but I'm important as a listener. So I'm just here for you to listen, and my own personal preferences or my own ideas, advice, they're like, my ego is out the door. Like my ego is not here. It's not about me. I'm just here as a listener. Or at some other points, like, okay, we just have to do this. Like I am important right now, or else maybe my cup is too empty and I cannot be the best version of me. I cannot control the switchboard anymore. Right? So I think that's really interesting to see it like that. Is there anything else you would like to add or?
No, that's a mental model that works for me, or a mental image that works for me too.
Yeah.
I just want to emphasize that you have to be a little humble while you do that, right? You have to be willing to reflect on your own actions and what you do, because you might end up in an echo chamber and not aware of that feedback. It's really hard for people to give you negative feedback unless they truly care about you.
Yeah.
You're not going to go up to a stranger and say, hey, man, the thing you did there really isn't helpful. And the stranger's going to look at you and like, really? You come and talk to me like that? I don't know who you are. I don't know what you want. So be a little humble. I think I'm my own harshest critic. The standards I set for myself, or the scoreboard I keep internally, is a different scoreboard from what other people have for me or for themselves, which helps me to stay sharp, to stay on the ball, and to develop my skills and knowledge. And I could probably do a way better job than I've done so far if I am motivated to do that. If I think it's important enough for me to develop that skill so that I can be a better partner or a better coach or a better therapist or a better parent. But that requires an internal drive or purpose to do it. This is not willpower or discipline. This is drive, right? You need to get...
It means you want it.
Yeah, want it, or like the interactions and the reward you get out of it.
The internal drive.
Yep.
Nice. I have a big internal drive to work on my own switchboard.
Yeah.
That's fun.
It's not easy.
It's not easy, but it's interesting and it's fun, and I love to learn. So, and writing this book, I think it's so interesting to hear about your perspective and from other people too. It will help me to learn how to control my switchboard also when I am with those people that I've learned more about now, so I can better understand them, or try to, right? So thank you.
No problem.
For this conversation. That was so interesting. I hope you have some takeaways too. Please let me know. I would love to hear it. So this was it for today.
Snaggers!
Ha there. Goodbye. Doei.